Ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding.
So here we are. We're actually on two floors in our home. We record the podcast, but we have a hurricane coming.
Yes, we do. So we decided to let the office, well, we told everyone they could work from home today. It wasn't really a
Hey,
decision. It
there's a
was more
hurricane coming. We're gonna be nice and let everyone
let
go.
you stay safe. No. And what's crazy is that this morning it was like blue skies almost. It's
Hmm.
so wild waiting for a hurricane to come because you still live in the tropics. So it's not like until it's there, it's not really there. I mean, we got some bands last night, but that was about it.
It's so crazy because it's like you're kind of disappointed, especially like for me, like a Floridian. Like I love hurricanes. Like I love the wind, I love the storms. I think it's just fascinating. And so to walk
We don't want
out,
any damage. Like we feel
we don't
bad
want
for
damage.
people.
It's not that I'm looking for disaster. I just love storms. And like so getting up and letting Pepper out this morning, I was like, this is like nothing, you
Well, it's
know?
just a normal day. We've gotten a few gusts of winds. What's really crazy is that it is a slow moving storm. And so, you know, schools shut yesterday, which is not crazy. I mean, we told everyone they could go home early yesterday too because the skies darkened and it was like, oh gosh, are the winds and the rain's going to start coming? But it was like, no, you're still 24 hours away from any sort of
And we had like the funny
hurricane.
thing is we let we were all like, hey, let's go home early because it felt like a storm was coming. We had
I
some
know.
some dark clouds and rain that came up, and so like I was like, well, hey, let's everyone get home and get settled. Maybe hit the grocery stores before they get ransacked
That's
from
the
everyone.
thing. I know. Oh my gosh, our office was out of water yesterday, so I was like, "Oh, I'll just go grab some water from Walmart because I was going anyway to get some stuff to do a recipe video." And like, I have never seen so many people in Walmart. It's an experience going to Walmart in general anyway to see the people of Walmart. But the people of Walmart on the day before a hurricane are like even more something. But
Yeah, they were definitely.
their water was wiped out. I mean, well, the Great Value
Water was
water.
out for everyone. I mean, when I went to Publix later on yesterday, there was some I would say 80 to 90% of the water was gone. A lot of the small packs were still there that
Yeah,
people could grab.
exactly. I know
It's
we
so
had to get
crazy.
Zephyr Hills. No one at Walmart's buying name brand, so there was like an entire section of Zephyr Hills. I was like, okay, we'll take it.
Yeah. The
But
but it kind of reminds us like, of something that we've done in the past and that we started working on at our own company, which is, a DR plan.
yeah, no, definitely. It's so important to have one. It's like depending on how many employees you have, it can be even more important because you just have that many more people to keep track of. But
Hmm.
I think that we were talking to our employees. We have a very small team right now, but still, we have a lot of people that work remote. Um, some in different states, some in different countries, and that's can be difficult on a day to day when you're trying to facilitate timing and meetings, but it also actually can be part of a disaster relief plan for an employer to have people in different locations. Like we talked about how yes, remote work, has its pros and cons. This is one of the pros because no matter what's happening in one specific geographic region, you have the overflow to have coverage for your clientele, regardless of what's happening in one area, even if that happens to be your headquarters. And so you can start to plan and have those people either work different hours or pick up the slack if you're going to have employees. The biggest thing I would say, particularly with a hurricane for us here in Florida, is that you could have people that are just out of power. Either power lines are down, roads are flooded, and power doesn't come back on, whether it's the main office or, their home facilities. It's like they might just not have the ability to get online. And so it's like, what can you do to help come up with a plan for that?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, we're kind of talking about people, but like just equipment and buttoning down the
Right.
hatches on your facilities and having that checklist that you're not waiting till the last second to go over. Like we have hurricanes here. Other areas they might have tsunamis. They might have
Snowstorms. I mean, it could be
they might have
anything.
snowstorms. There could be
Fires.
blisters. There could be forest fires. There could be earthquakes. Um, but having a plan just to kind of batten down, like yesterday, it was like before everyone left, it was like, hey, let's turn off all the computers. Let's get all the everything powered down in case we get a power surge or power goes out and then it gets restored and there's a big surge. Like you just don't know. And so
No.
having a checklist that could walk us through those items would be really good. And
Yeah.
it seems
And
like,
we are beginning stages. We're working on it, but it goes as far as like having some sort of way of contacting your employees as well. So first,
mhm,
it's like first and foremost, people do think about their people. So it's like, okay, if something happens, you want to just ensure everybody is safe after the event. And sometimes the events are planned, like hurricanes. I will say are something that are coming. You've got days to prepare for it. You can anticipate what's going to happen. If it's an earthquake or if there's a forest fire, like oftentimes those things are completely unplanned for. And so you have to have something in place that stands all the time for different scenarios where you can check up on people. But that's where you have phone trees and people's personal information and managers that are responsible for checking on employees because you want to make sure they're okay. Then it's, okay, let's talk equipment. Do people have what they need to work from home? And sometimes even depending on how long your main facility is out of commission. Let's say there was even a fire just in the facility. It wasn't even a natural disaster. How long are you going to be down for? And you have to think, is there a secondary location that we can set up to say we'll contract with these people or have a space to bring employees into an office to work day to day? So those are all really important aspects of a DR plan, and it takes some time to put together, but definitely worth it. It's not something that I had experienced until I lived here in Florida, and throughout the last 10 years of my professional career, we've had to refer to a DR plan more times than I can count.
yeah. Well, one of the things that we've had, especially in the kind of like the data and the tech area, is offices in the middle of the state that would not be prone to flooding or power outages or hurricanes. And if you actually go inland to like say Lakeland, they have built at huge empty buildings that are all set up with computers and desks and chairs and pens and paper and phones. And it is all geared towards, and companies literally pay for the chairs, empty chairs all year long, so that they're there if they need them. And so it's super important, especially for some bigger companies. I think for us being smaller, we can kind of gather everyone up in a garage or a different space and, run a
Right.
power line and do some quick networking. We're definitely not there at that stage, but some of these plans are very important. I actually met someone at a local networking event last week, and her company was called Local Relief, and it was all about pointing people to the resources they needed when something happened. And I literally told her, I was like, I would totally go after subscription model with companies who are looking to kind of, create ways to communicate with their employees. Other than phone numbers, they don't know. No, most people don't have like a mass, plan like we do, like to Slack or some of these other, platforms. And one of the things that another one of our actual clients said is that Facebook is getting rid of their work. I think it's called Workplace. It's like the Facebook version or the work version of Facebook that a lot of companies were using, and I think they're either selling it off or killing it.
I've never
I
even
don't
heard of
know.
that.
Workplace?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a Facebook, but it's for your company. So it's only your company. Like it's like your
So it's
important.
not Facebook. You're saying it's a tool that's similar to Facebook. I thought you
No,
meant Facebook had a.
no, Facebook owned it. Like
Oh,
it was
okay.
it was literally like a Facebook. You know, it's so nice. We're remote here, so I can actually click
Look
over
something up right away.
and look something up. Yeah, it's actually called Workplace from Meta, and it
Meta,
combines
Meta.
basically all their tools, but it's just your company. Anyways, it's going. They're going to be sunsetting it in 2026,
Okay,
which is
going
good
away.
because we're building something for another company to replace theirs. And if someone else would like that feature, please reach out to us. We'd love to turn you into a client.
There you
So,
go. But no, I think the other aspect of storms and hurricanes and natural disasters is kind of the sense of community. I can say that there's been a lot of fun that we've had, in preparation of something coming. I think oftentimes clientele is very understanding of some natural disaster coming. Typically, people
Mhm.
turn into really great, patient, understanding humans who are like, okay, we just care about your safety, and it allows for the employees to take the time to plan. Our local town here, it's like you can go and get sandbags. You have to put your hurricane shutters up. Like what are you doing to prepare for these kinds of things? And
The
some
liquor
people's
store stays
preparation
open an extra hour.
looks different than others, but yeah, we've had many a hurricane parties in the past, especially when there's some larger storms coming. And I've had girlfriends show up with rope and machetes in case like a tree falls on the house, and I've also had girlfriends show up with like 24 bottles of wine in a case because that's all they need to survive. So, but I know yesterday is like, you do anticipate losing power, and you're sitting there going, okay, I've got to do the laundry, let's run the dishwasher. Like, what are we going to need to make sure we're in like full-fledged preparation for maybe being out of power? But what's nice about where we live, we're right downtown, and normally they do turn the power on downtown before any other areas, which again,
Well,
part of the
not turn
DR,
down. They fix the higher, denser areas first.
right,
So
which is typically a downtown area. And
yeah.
so a couple of years, was it a year ago? A couple of years ago, I can't
Is that
remember
all
which
when
hurricane it
we
was.
had like the block party downtown?
Yes. So, like, everyone was out of power. I mean, talking weeks, and a lot of people were like borrowing other people's houses to shower, and because
Yeah.
you don't have hot water, it's crazy. And downtown opened, and it was like during
It
the work
never
week.
downtown never lost power. So downtown on Main Street and all the bars and restaurants were full, and people were traveling and coming in because they were looking for something to eat. They didn't have
Yeah, they
something.
can't cook at home, so all the
Eat
restaurants
at
were open.
home.
They had like massive plug stations. People were like just charging laptops and phones and computers, and so there is an aspect of community that can be really great surrounding some of these natural disasters. But we truly hope that no one experiences major damages. This is only, I say only, I think going to be a Category 3 when it hits land.
Category 3 is not really even a storm.
Chris doesn't even consider them hurricanes. He's a Florida boy, so unless it's like above a Category 5, he's like
Look,
nothing to worry
unless
about.
it's like, hey, this is an Andrew, in 1992 we had Andrew that came through, and that was a big storm, and it decimated the whole Homestead area. I was a kid, we helped clean it, clean that area up and everything. But even during that storm, we were outside and jumping on our trampoline and jumping, into the
Into
storm.
the
It was
wind.
blowing us back onto the trampoline. So for me, it's like if unless we're having unless it's like, hey, you need to put your shutters up. This is gonna be a big storm. Like I'm just like, it's just a storm. They pass, right? Like they.
Well, and the problem is that you just never know. Sometimes the storms are slow moving. So we've had Category 5s come and hit, but they're very quick. And so like they hit hard, but they're in and out. There's other storms that are Categories 2, 3, and they just sit over you, and it rains and rains and rains. And that's the biggest thing is flooding, which this year, our particular area on the Gulf Coast has experienced a lot of flooding, and we actually have some really close friends who lost, the downstairs of their house entirely. That water came in
Hmm.
three-quarters of the way up their walls in their, downstairs of their home. And right now, those homes have all been gutted, and they've taken out the drywall, and they're down to their studs. So it could be devastating if we get some serious storm surge from this particular storm, for those people. Because you're the one who said, sorry, this is working remote. The dog just squeaked a toy. I don't know if you heard it, but you're the one, Chris, who knows more about this than I do. But it's like if a storm gets wet, your home wet, it needs time to dry out before you can actually start to rebuild.
Yeah, your wood and everything can get, usually when your drywall gets soaked, you just cut it out, you expose everything to the studs, and the wood's wet, but wood dries. I mean, that's the great thing about wood is that it just needs to be aired out. it shouldn't get moldy. As long as you dry everything out, you put some fans on it, and then you just re-drywall and hide everything back in the walls. So,
But
um,
that's a lot of those houses are still drying out right now. We do have a friend, and it's
yeah,
down to the studs, and so while you're not losing your personal belongings again, it's like the insurance companies are already backed up from what just happened to us in July. And I mean, it would be really sad and devastating if people had to start from the beginning again. It's just longer to the rebuild, which actually brings us to our next point we were going to talk about closing on a home,
hmm
or being in the
right before a
process of
storm,
closing. Yeah, right before a major disaster.
which is like, should you do it? It's like a lot of places won't let you close before a storm, or the insurance company's like, hey, you know what? We need to wait till the storm closes. We don't want to just, give you a policy. You paid a couple $100 at closing, and now we have a couple, tens of thousands of dollars of damage. So a lot of times people are going to postpone those.
Yeah,
Um,
if it's the week of closing, we have an employee in our office. They're supposed to be closing on their home tomorrow, so we do have
mhm.
our fingers crossed that everything goes through for them. And we've got other friends who are in the process of selling their home, purchasing a new one, and it's crazy because the inspection period's over, like just ended.
Yep.
And so for those buyers, it's like whatever happens, based on a storm, it's kind of this gray area of you're not
Yeah. Like,
insured on
I
the
mean, if
home
it did
yet.
some damage, is that going to be included before they close?
And if they choose not to close because the sellers don't necessarily have to fix it, they can try to get it through insurance, but again, that takes time, so it probably wouldn't be settled before the closing date, which is coming very soon. And if they choose to pull out of the deal entirely, it's past that
hmm
inspection period, you lose your escrow funds. So it's like really, and that's one of the reasons why this is a very slow season, particularly in the state of Florida, for home transactions. A lot of people buy, and what we would consider season in real estate would be January through March. Or sorry, it's like January is the holidays, March, April is like the biggest month, but January is the start of season, and people love it down here, and they're like, oh, we should buy, and 4 months later, they're like, why did we do this again?
Yeah, that's it's the luck of the draw. So, but and part about living in Florida, it's one of the things that's, again, I've never actually looked at hurricanes as a bad thing. I was just at getting coffee with one of our clients who's in we're writing contractor software for them, and and I was like, look, I love hurricanes. He's like, why? I was like, because you get business. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, that last storm we had like 5 remodels. I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's redistribution of wealth. Everyone's paying for all these insurance premiums that are going out the door. Like, we want that money back, and it goes right into the economy locally. So if you're in a home service business, or construction, or windows and roofs and um, um, anything that would be considered like reclamation or treating water damage, like, your business is shooting up to the roof. So
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. Tree trimming, huge. I love throwing the chainsaw in the back of the golf cart, going through and just cutting people's trees,
I know
chainsaw them
you're
up.
very helpful.
I
We do. We
actually, I actually have the chainsaw all gassed up right by the garage. I mean, hey, I'm ready. Let's
I
do it.
know. You're very it's so sweet. So hurricanes hit. We've been in this house for 5
4
years
years.
now. Yeah. And the neighbors, we do have some elderly neighbors, so Chris drives around and he sees if anybody needs help cutting down the trees that have fallen in their yard and everything. And then like that whole next week, I feel like we have random stuff showing up at our door, like little thank you notes and like homemade cakes, and they're so sweet. I'm like,
Yeah.
go cut down some more trees, honey. We need more cake.
Well, seriously, and I'm sitting there. It's like they think I'm doing them a favor, and I'm like, you guys are doing me. You're giving me therapy.
I know. Little
Chainsawing
do
trees
they
is
know you
therapy.
love tree cutting. Yeah, we've gone on many of vacations to the woods or campgrounds where we're staying in like, cabins or yurts or wherever, and he always goes to the people like, "Hey, do you guys have any wood on site that I could just chop?" And
That's
so they're like,
awesome.
"What?"
I will tell you a little secret of the trade. Like, there's a lot of permitting issues with tree removal, And so whether it's your home or your business, these natural disasters are a great way for a
Do not.
tree to accidentally have fallen and gotten chopped up. And then not only that, you get free you get free collection of debris. So I expect all of you people out there, I have
Anyone that's
some
got a
good,
tree they've wanted to get rid of for years that they couldn't because the city made them keep it, the
yeah,
hurricane
they
might
grade
just
these
blow
trees.
it
They're like,
over.
oh no, this tree, it's still got years left. You can't take it out yet. And then, but if it's natural disaster, and then they go back, they're like, hey, there used to be a tree here. You'd be like, yeah, it fell during. You take pictures of it, like right after the storm, date stamp them, post it on your Facebook. Be like, yeah, this tree fell down. You don't have to show it actually ripped out of the ground. You just show the top of it falled over. You're like,
This
hey,
is
sorry.
terrible. Do not I do not condone this
Follow me
message.
for some more local, get past your community guidelines, tips, and
Yeah,
tricks.
break the bylaws. Oh my goodness. Crazy town. But I'm glad, totally changing topics here, but Bree, Chris's daughter, lives in Pensacola, and
Mm-hmm.
she was driving down here to purchase a car. She got a car last weekend, and I'm so glad she obviously would not have made the drive with this hurricane on the horizon if it was this week. So,
Yeah.
but the car buying process is quite the
Well, you know what? I think everyone hates car buying, And so I have two thoughts here. One is I need to reach out to her and make sure that her car is like protected. Like there's a hurricane coming, and I don't think at her place she doesn't have covered parking. So if there's a place like a parking garage, she probably should be moving her car into that.
that's so true. So
We
a
do
lot
that
of
here.
yes.
So like I will literally move the our car um,
To a downtown parking garage. And
into a parking garage.
oftentimes, if you are in a downtown area, or even if not, the parking garages typically stay open during a natural disaster. They don't charge you, and they
Then
just
you
allow for
pay.
people to park your cars. Yeah,
Yeah.
which is
I'm gonna
really
actually
nice.
text her in real time right
I
now
know
while we're
you
talking
being on a
about.
computer during a podcast is like my worst nightmare because you're doing 20 other things and it's
No, I'm
you're like
not. I
barely
promise.
following
I'm not doing any
bullshit.
other things.
You're like, yeah, the parking garages, and I should actually.
Oh my gosh.
But no. So the whole car buying process was interesting because the people were trying to negotiate with Bree, and Chris had just gone to the dealership down here in a totally different city, and was getting all kinds of different prices and negotiations, and so you were kind of teaching Bree how to hardball with these car salesmen, and it was
Try
quite
doing it,
the
and it's so funny because the dealership up where she lives, which is up in the Panhandle of Florida, was like, "Oh, we can beat any price that Sarasota gives you." And it was kind of like, and she's like, "Okay, well, this is the price they gave my dad," and they're like, "There's no way that they gave him that price," and it's like, "No, this is the price." He's like, "Well, it's not the right model," and so we literally had to keep sending them documentation. It's like, "No, this is the model." And for her trade, and she had this little Lexus hatchback. They're like, oh, we'll give you 3,000 for it. And I was like, there's no way that car is it's worth way more than three. I was like, we need to get seven for it. And I convinced the local dealership to give us seven for it. They went as high as five. So it was worth her to drive down for a potential savings of about $5,000 on the car.
yeah.
You know,
It was huge. It was like, okay, and you know what? It is. It's a 7-hour drive, and it was a long trip, but it was totally worth it to
it was
get that
totally worth
savings.
it.
And it
I,
was a gorgeous car. It's a really nice car.
it's beautiful. She got like a little Volkswagen Tiguan,
Not
and
little. It's not little at all. It's
it's a
like a nice
mid-sized SUV.
SUV.
It's
Yeah.
not a small SUV. Yeah. So here's the thing, right? So a couple thoughts. Why did we get this car? One is we got 0% interest, and we beat him on the car, and we beat him on the trade-in, and I feel that she got an amazing deal. And a lot of people talk about whether or not you should finance a car versus buying one outright, like saving up money and buying one. And of course, then there's like the leasing options, which
Yeah.
is a whole nother spiel. Um, have always been a fan of financing vehicles. They're depreciating assets, and you put money down, and if you get 0%, in my mind, that's great. A lot of times, I think I've probably gotten like 2% or 2.9, And in the grand scheme of things, that's super cheap money that you're paying for that vehicle. And I would rather literally get new vehicles, every couple years than I always say I'll drive a vehicle in the ground, but I've never done that. Like, I don't
I've
know.
gotten pretty close. Everyone always used to make fun of me because it would be like, if you won the lottery, what would you do? And I would always say, they'd be like, would you get a new car? And at the time I was like, no, I had my little like I my it wasn't my first car, it was my second car, but I had this Grand Am and it like sat like right on the ground and it was like so it's like such a little sporty car and I was like, "Oh no, I love my Grand Am. I would keep my Grand Am. If I was a millionaire, I'd be driving around." I could just picture it today. It'd be hilarious. But yeah, no, today I would definitely spend the money and get a car. But we were saying to Bree, it's like even if you have the money to pay off your car, why would you pay it off early if you had 0% interest? It's like keep that cash and those assets in your hands if it's not
I
owed and
always
just
look
pay
at
the
it.
bare minimum.
Cash is king. We can
Yeah.
deploy cash to make money. Me putting all my cash into a car is not making me any money.
No,
So
especially at 0%, if you can continue to pay the bare minimum and use that cash to go buy a house or invest in a business. I mean, who knows? Put it into stocks.
yeah.
It's like,
Well, some people will say, well, you're actually losing money because you're paying the interest. It's like 2.9%. Well, here's the other thing, and I'm always blown away by this. Like you and I are very, what's the right word? Frugal when it
gorgeous.
comes to vehicles. We're gorgeous. Yes, we're gorgeous. Good call.
What were you going
We
to say?
I would say that like I'm not. I look at a car. It's a utility to me. Like there's no. I don't look at cars as status symbols. And a
Yeah.
lot of people, they look at their cars like they're status symbols. Like it's like, oh, I got this Beamer, I got this Mercedes Benz, or and like quite frankly, like the people knowing what they do for work and what they do, I am always blown away when people are driving, 80.
Well, it's
I've never
always
spent
so.
over 35 for a car.
No, but that's not true either. But not for yourself anyway. But it's it's one of those things where it's like you go into those smaller neighborhoods or places where the houses are totally beat down, but someone's got like a Mercedes in the driveway, and you're like, oh, you really wanted people to think you were doing so well in life. Which, I mean, hey, different things matter to different people.
That was pretty harsh right there.
Well,
That's pretty harsh. But you have a point, which is like they're flat. It's where you choose to spend your money. But like pickup trucks these days, like I drive a Chevy Colorado, a mid-size vehicle. It's got all the bells and whistles on it. Nothing spectacular. That car was in mid 30s. I think it was like 38 or something like that. But you can buy trucks that are 100,000 over $100,000.
I
My
know
first
it's
house
crazy.
cost $106,000. Like buying one of those big pickup trucks, I don't know if I quite understand it. And then I always sit there and go, man, I must be missing something with their job or something to be able to throw down on a vehicle like that.
But I will say, you're right. That was harsh of me to say, and it was more of just a joke. It's like kind of what you see in the movies.
Whatever.
But
You like to make people cry.
no, I'm backtracking. No, you guys, we've been getting. First of all, you're successful when people start giving you mean comments on, social media platforms. But I've got my own groupie of haters. I'm not trying to get any more. I'm like, I do
I'll say
not
that
want any.
I love the comments, and it is interesting. So like when things are directed at you, and depending on how you look at it, you do tend to take things a little bit more personal. And
I do.
and
Yeah,
I'm
because
just thinking of like
I'm a
these are
good person.
randoms, like like that are just making comments, and and I literally go, you know what? I welcome just the interaction, like the
I
fact that they're
welcome the
reading.
interaction too. I would consider myself a good person and I actually don't you don't really care what other people think of you, but I
I
will
do.
say yeah, you do. You care less than I do. I'll say that, depending on what it is. But I think that and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. Like you have so much confidence in yourself and what you're doing and the people that do know exactly who you are. That's the thing. Like randoms who don't actually know you who have an opinion, it's like you really shouldn't let it bother you. I see trolls on social all the time that, people
Trolls
have to deal
everywhere.
with and 99% of the world is like just ignore them. But But for me, I guess it's so hard for me to understand. And these aren't just comments at me, this is like trolls in general. I don't understand how you feel it necessary on a digital platform to take the time out of your day just to say something mean. Like, I feel like I go out of my way to sit there and say, "Oh, I would say something really nice right now," and then you're almost a little embarrassed, and you're like, "Should I? Shouldn't I? Is that silly? Do I?" And then it's like, no. If someone said something nice to me, it would really mean a lot. Like I would like that, so I'll do
Yeah.
that for this person. Like I will share what I'm thinking. But
There
anyway,
was that one person that made a comment in our Dusted brand, and it was towards you, and I was like, oh, I'm fucking responding. Like,
oh, it was just about one of my videos that I was cooking, and they were like amateur knife skills, and I'm like, okay, I don't claim to be a professional chef. I'm just over here having
you
fun
can't,
making
if you want to
recipes.
be on the cooking shows, you can't be a professional chef. Everyone knows that. You can't
I
be
gotta
food
have
professional.
something to learn.
In fact,
No.
you know what? If we ever apply to one of those shows, you should actually sit there and be like, look, I'm clearly not professional due to this comment. And we should reference that and just be like, hey, I got a thick skin, because a lot of, I never really thought you hear about the hate and these actors and actresses that are really famous and they're like, you don't realize how much it gets to you because they have thousands of haters,
I
and
know.
so when we get one or two, we get a little miffed or like, yeah, loser or whatever, but they have thousands, if not tens of thousands of people who are
Well,
just,
and some of them you can tell have been able to just live their life, and others, actually, over the years, I've seen it really impact them
yeah.
mentally, and then they get vulnerable and come out and talk about it. It's creates
Did you
anxiety,
just hear
but
that gust of wind?
I did hear a huge gust of wind, yes.
Yeah.
But I was going to say before we got into the whole troll thing, because I don't want any extra haters. I that was a mean comment about what happens in neighborhoods and what your house looks like versus your car. You don't know what people are using their car for. Some of those trucks, like they could be in construction, and even though it costs a lot, it's like they are banking on their construction business, and they need the truck to haul things and put stuff in. But also, there's people who are trying to build up their career, and maybe you're a realtor and people are actually getting in your car and going to look at houses and you're selling them $1 million home. Well, sure, maybe it is worth investing the money in a car to make them feel, perception is reality. So
Yeah.
oftentimes it could help your career grow. And it's like first you started with the car and then you ended up getting the house because you built your career on the perception you were giving off. And maybe it's not even a perception, it's truly who you are as a professional. You're just growing in your career. So, anyway.
Yeah, no, I had a good friend, and he owned a very large survey company, and and when I say surveys, I mean like property surveys.
Mhm.
And he always would say to me, he would say, "Hey, you need to fake it till you make it." And I was like, Why would I do that? And so I believed that early in my career, like, and I did make some decisions whether I bought, a bigger house or some sports car or a few other little things. And what I found afterwards is that no one really cared. No one in my circle cared because everyone was the same like level as me. I wasn't trying to impress or join into a group that was that made more than me, outside of it. Not being said, I've always skewed towards, the upper middle class. So we've never really gone without, I haven't had everything I wanted. I mean, there's definitely things I want, but
Yeah. But it
um,
is interesting even how people act. And again, this is like major stereotypes, but I feel like there's some people who didn't come from money and once they get a little, it's like they're just so thankful or that, and then there's other people who I would consider very wealthy and well off, but their expectations are so high. It's like they got there and they think they can kind of be on these power trips or maybe be rude to service workers or be, because their expectation is like, I have the money now, you must serve me. And then there's
yeah,
oftentimes the people that are like what I would consider the fuck you rich. Like, I'm so rich, it's silly. And they're typically the ones that are like walking around in flip flops and they're,
we're the ones that earned it. They are.
yeah.
It's the people that I know. If they've inherited it, it's there's still a little bit of an arrogance there with
Yeah.
it, but the people who have earned it have always, everyone that I know has been pretty chill.
Yeah, yeah. No, just good. And you know what? It's good. It's good people. There's not much. I'm
Yeah.
watching. It is definitely the wind is a blowing now where
The
we
wind
are.
has picked up.
But
Yeah.
before
My
we
my
end,
light has actually flickered a couple times. I don't know if you
has
can
it?
tell.
Hopefully we don't.
I'm
We're doing the
actually
podcast for all of you before we lose power.
Yeah,
This
I'm actually in the man cave in the house, so it's the bottom level of our home. It actually was
the
an oversized
bunker.
utility closet. It's like a bunker. Like if we needed to be in a safe space, I'd probably bring us to this room. It's
Yeah.
probably the safest room in the house.
There's no windows. I know our entire house is like huge windows and glass door walls, but anyway.
Yeah.
Um, it was also interesting before we get off today, the whole there's been a lot of news on the CEO of OpenAI and trying to make the company for profit. And I know we've been dabbling in AI just in terms of how to leverage it for a business. Like, what do you think of all this?
You know, like I read that article early this morning with like the exodus of people who don't agree with it,
The
and
executives that are getting the heck out of there,
you know,
yeah.
and even Elon Musk was like, "Hey, we created this as a nonprofit to give back, and we use OpenAI in some of our
Mhm.
software products and everything else." And the big thing that jumps out at me is like, you know, they do charge, like we pay them, and there's a fee, and I'm actually worried that the fees are going to go up a lot more because of like how valuable it is. Like it is extremely valuable tool that we use in some of our software packages. We see the values, and everyone sits there and is like, "Oh, it replaces jobs." It's like, really? Go try to find someone who can rewrite something the way OpenAI can do, or generate content like it. It's not replacing; it's enhancing or filling jobs that people just do not have the skill sets to do anymore,
Yeah.
which is like mind blowing.
I agree.
Um,
Even graphics, art, I mean, the other day I was going in there and I was like, "Give me a picture of a French bulldog riding a jet ski." I mean, it you can do anything. It produces things that may or may not even be capable of being produced in real life. And
yeah,
so there's a whole element of creativity that you can leverage it for. But I agree, it's support and supplemental, not a replacement. But there are a lot of people who have really heavily leaned on it to be more efficient in their day to
hmm
day. And I think that if they do start to charge more,
it
um,
just becomes like a monopoly, like Apple. Like Apple, when we push apps through Apple, they're always asking the question, how do you make money and where's our piece of it?
yeah,
And I feel like that's where a lot of this AI stuff's going. It's kind of like, hey, we made the back end tools, where's our money? And they're going to want more money. Matter of fact,
probably just like
before I forget,
everything.
if you're like looking, any of our listeners are looking for just a channel that's talking about it, they should check out the AI Guys podcast. We'll tag them in this. But they're always talking about the latest and greatest and how people are using it, and it's pretty cool stuff.
Well, they're really informed. I mean, they've been playing with the tool since before it was anything that the
For
world knew
years.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely worth listening to what they have to say and what's happening. But it's crazy too because even if they charge more, it's like there is a value there, but also over the course of time, I think that while there's still plenty of inaccuracies of what can come out of AI, like you shouldn't take it for 100% truth, just like you shouldn't take Googling something for 100% truth. The reality is it's scanning the internet and the information that's available. Whether or not that information has been documented or validated by, a source that was worthy of trusting, you don't know. And so I think that over the course of time, the tool has gotten more accurate. It's not completely accurate, but they're definitely working through
Yeah.
some of those kinks. And
I'm excited for it. I think it's
yeah,
going to enhance our business. I mean, some of the things that we're building for clients and building for ourselves is just absolutely amazing. I can't wait. It gives us a competitive advantage, and I like that. I mean, anytime
for
we can have an
sure.
advantage, I like it. Matter of fact, what's funny is that we just built a social platform for a client, and we made it public like a couple weeks ago. And he was like, "What happens if someone posted like a bad picture and stuff?" I go, bro, like there's nothing we can do about that except connect it to AI and hey, have AI actually check the picture for us and make sure that it's a viable picture. Otherwise, you're going to have a picture public that's raunchy and bad and shouldn't be on your platform.
Yeah. It's
So,
no different than if you post on YouTube. I mean, you can make your settings like whether it's a picture or it's a comment, and it's like, hey, scan for inappropriateness and let me review it before you post it live. Like you can
yep.
set, criteria before you do that. But anyway, we've definitely chatted plenty about AI and hurricanes and DR plans. And with that being said, I think we need to just tell everybody to stay safe, regardless of where you are in the globe.
Yeah,
You
I
never
think the
know what's
master
coming.
plan probably
Yes.
includes a nice cold beverage.
I know. I could use one.
Me too. All right, with that, we'll see you later.
Stay safe, everyone. Bye.